Welcome to Perspectives. I'm Randall Mark. Well, today is our last episode of Perspectives, and on this show, we're going to take you into the 65 shows that we've done, over 180 interviews. We've looked at the personalities, the spiritual experiences, the places. Stay tuned for the best of Perspectives. When we started this show, I said that for most of us, the only time we ever encounter another culture is when we eat their food. Well, on this show, we've had a chance to move beyond food into the beliefs, the personalities, and the places that actually contribute to these beautiful, unique situations and cultures. Now, we show you some of the incredible worship centers around our community. We're at the mosque here in Surrey. We just did some prayers.
Yep.
Why is everyone in a line like that?
Well, everybody comes from different cultures and different backgrounds. Some people are richer than others, some are poorer.
Yeah.
And when you stand in the line in front of God, you're basically saying we're all equal.
Huh.
Nobody's richer than another person in front of God because
Right.
you're submitting yourself to a higher power.
You're fine with the fact that your kids are being exposed to another religion? You don't think, like, what if all of a sudden they become Sikh?
I'm fine with it, which I know makes me different. I know not all Christians would be fine with that. I think it's important for kids to be exposed to many, many different ideas. And then ultimately they're going to make their own decisions anyways. I can't force them to believe anything.
In the Jewish tradition, the idea of remembrance, remember, even from Deuteronomy, this idea of bind it on your hearts, on your doorposts, remembering both what God has done, what Yahweh, and obviously remembering people. Is the idea of remembrance very important?
I think so. Zachor, lizkor, to remember. Zachor, the commandment to remember, is very important. And I know personally, in terms of remembering who came before us because of our rich tradition, the sufferings of our people, whether it be the Holocaust or events of any century, it's ingrained in us to remember those events.
You give this much time for a piece of art to be displayed in a church, and why? What's inside you? What's in your heart that you're doing this?
Well, you see, in a Christian church, it's not as in a mosque, because the church is centered on Christ, who is incarnate. So this sanctifies the human image, and that's why Christian art centers on the figure of man.
See, I find that so fascinating. You have this Korean Presbyterian mix, and then it becomes a Thai Buddhist place of worship. It's just fascinating how these things are fluid. The spirituality and culture are fluid.
Yeah, I think that's one of the great attractions of this city, the diversity and the fact that something like that can happen.
Tell me, what about the domes? Why the domes?
The domes signify where the deities of Lord Krishna and other personalities are. There, nobody can be higher than Krishna. So that area with the domes is blocked off, that nobody is able to go above, and it signifies exactly where in the building Lord Krishna's deities are.
Why is meditation so vital for Buddhism?
Well, we suffer a lot because of our thinking. The mind is a powerful tool, but because of our human condition, often it's misused, and it causes a lot of suffering in life. With meditation, we quieten the mind. We fall into that deeper reservoir within ourselves that we know as wisdom. And frequently, that superficial thinking will quieten down, and the answers to our problems will begin to arise because the surface noise has become quiet.
After the break, I'll show you a sample of the fascinating conversations I had with over 180 people. Welcome back. The most powerful learning experience is when you meet a new person with a new way of looking at the world. I got a chance to do that on Perspectives. Here's a sample of my conversations.
Somebody said, what do you want from heaven on earth? And I thought, my God, well, what I would like is that perhaps our policy would change, and that every time an immigrant woman comes to Canada, you know, when you come to the officer and they check you and ask you, you know, all the pertinent questions, that they're given a card and saying, these are your rights. And you
so she's informed.
She's totally informed.
I do admit that there are some Muslim leaders who use Islam but to propagate their own interests. And that's, yes, we have that in our history.
As a teacher of Islam, of the Quran, how do you stand against that?
Well, we tell them people usually use different things to promote their agendas. Sometimes they use politics, sometimes they use economics, economy, and sometimes they can use religion.
And is there a correlation between their happiness and spirituality?
Very clearly there is. What we found is that anywhere from 5 to 27% of a child's happiness can be explained by the child's spirituality. I mean, to put that in perspective, money explains less than 1%.
What are some of the key issues that are going to be happening in world history before the end times take place?
Well, I think the setup for the end of time are crisis situations. The economic crises
that we're in right now?
That could be it. It could be one of those things. This is the kind of a climate that will kind of usher in this last time.
I think a lot of people look externally for their happiness, and Buddhism is about starting internally. And when you start internally, then you actually affect your environment, but you start from within.
Rabbi David, what is a Jew and a Muslim doing down in United Christian Church down in the East End serving food? How does that work?
Well, it works beautifully, actually. It's, you know, it's really, we could say, just doing God's work, right? There's hungry people. There is food available. Somebody has to put it together and get it to them.
Many people at Christmas, they think about Santa Claus, but behind all of that, there's a real story of a real saint. Tell me his story.
St. Nicholas was the bishop of the city of Myra in Leakview. As the bishop of the city, he was especially known for his generosity and kindness.
First, we thought that people just come and want to talk about their sexuality, but suddenly we started having people coming from different parts of the world who have come to Canada seeking asylum because...
Why? Why are they asylum?
Because they can't be gay in Pakistan or in Afghanistan.
Because they'll be killed?
Because they get killed.
What do you think causes this? Do you think it's aliens, it's UFOs? I mean, I'm watching M. Night Shyamalan movie The Signs, and I'm thinking it's aliens. What do you think?
Well, first of all, there's lots of theories, and aliens are one of the theories. Others, Star Wars technology, you know, laser beams.
Why is there such a difference between Canadian and American understanding of religion and politics?
It has, I think, an enormous amount to do with our history. It also has to do with it that while both are countries of immigrant countries, immigration is far more important in Canada today than it is in the United States, and that means you've got a multitude of other of different religions, and it means that there's not that one cohesive focus.
Essentially, rockabilly is the birth of rock and roll. It's early underground punk rock, you know. We're essentially just remembering a past time.
Why the 50s? Why did you pick on, like, that's a weird time for it to start? What is it unique about the 50s that?
I think it was just a simpler time, and it was the birth of rebellion, I think.
Do you feel empowered when you wear the hijab?
Yes, definitely, because when I'm wearing the scarf, it's covering my form, and it's saying, please judge me based on my my beliefs, on my thoughts, on my personality. It's making it so that my beauty, that my sexuality, it doesn't really come into the equation.
How did you come upon your spirituality?
Tiny kid in Winnipeg, I'd look out the window some days and it would be 40 below zero and I'd see little sparrows sitting on the tree and I would say to myself, how can these just be out there in this brutal, brutal cold and they're sitting there like things are just fine? And I couldn't have been more than 5 or 6 years old at the time, and I had this overwhelming thought that maybe things are just the way they are supposed to be, that the universe has an order to it that we don't determine.
I knew you got to give it up because I used to be a professional musician. That's what I did.
Wow.
Yeah. I used to be married to an opera singer. So we were, it was all opera.
And you're not, and now you're celibate?
Of course, yeah.
Did you have to give up the marriage?
The lady and the guitar, yes.
Hold on, you're telling me you got divorced because you wanted to become a monk?
Yes.
After the break, we look at the issue of health and wellness.